Here's a hypothetical situation. Let's pretend it's your responsibility to reinvent a popular cartoon for a new spin-off series. This scenario will be especially relevant for all the Warner Brothers producers in the audience who suddenly find themselves laboring under a new master. There are a couple tried and true approaches we can consider. After all, we don't want to get too creative here. We are TV executives. First is the not entirely accurate idea that kids prefer to watch shows about other kids, resulting in cultural airballs like James Bond Jr. and Yo Yogi, which age down existing characters. Or you may prefer to send your intellectual property into the future, as with the Highlander cartoon set in a post-apocalyptic 27th century, or Zorro Generation Z, which took place in the far-flung year of 2015. Finally, if you have no idea what you're doing, you might as well just try both strategies, like when Looney Tunes got separate 2000s reboots as both insipid toddlers and cybernetic superheroes. Some of this shit looks even more unhinged than my Lola Bunny fanfiction. But what if we took it even further? What if we recast a familiar hero as a cool, edgy teenager and set the story in a gritty cyberpunk near future?
Baby, you got a stew going.
That is how you get Batman Beyond. It was a sequel to Batman the Animated Series, released in 1999, and fast-forwarding a few decades to a point when Bruce Wayne grew too feeble for crime fighting. High school student Terry McGinnis, who of course has a tragic backstory of his own, becomes the new Batman after a chance meeting with Bruce.
I was a pretty bad kid once. Ran with a rough crowd, broke a lot of laws to say nothing of my folks' hearts. The kind of punk you wouldn't have wasted a second punch on back in the day.
Your point.
The series is full of mutants and robots and industrial rock music, and I remember what I thought when I first heard about the show.
Stupid.
But eventually Cartoon Network started airing reruns late at night, and back then, much like now, I didn't have a lot going on, so I started watching, and I liked it a lot. Contrary to my initial skepticism, the show is not simply futuristic Batman. Once in a while they bring back an old villain, but for the most part Batman Beyond succeeds on the strength of its own new characters and stories, with the supportive yet contentious relationship between Bruce and Terry at its heart. Recently I was rewatching a few episodes, and finally thought to check whether Batman Beyond video games exist. I took for granted that the show wasn't popular enough for a tie-in game when it was on the air, although there are games for SWAT Cats, Biker Mice from Mars, and James Bond Jr., and none of those shows lit the world on fire. What I found was Batman Beyond Return of the Joker on Nintendo 64. To play the Batman game of the future, we have to leave the 16-bit era behind. My first thought was, cool. My second thought was, if there were a good Batman Beyond game, I would probably know about it already. So is that a bad sign? Let's find out. By the way, I thought Joker already returned on the NES. And on Game Boy? Stop returning so often, Joker. How can we miss you if you won't stay away? Stage 1 is an aerospace lab where Terry arrives to investigate a robbery in progress. Simple enough, it could be the opening to a typical episode of the show. Gotham Air and Space is a gray hallway, an environment which will become familiar all too soon. Members of the Joker's gang, that's Jokers with a Z, are the culprits, so let's crack some skulls. Yep, it's a beat 'em up, and a primitive one at that. We're back to the double dragon rules of the console not being able to handle more than 2 enemies on screen at a time. These initial clowns are real pushovers. I would actually prefer they be a little stronger so I can learn how to string together a decent combo attack. You smash crates to gather items and keys, and occasionally there's an opportunity to duck into a side room, but the stage is very linear. Deeper inside the lab are robot sentries, which are tougher, but it still seems my best bet is to run up and spam kicks to their metallic groins. In the final room you'll find Bonk, the first boss. He's got this ground stomp move, but he's no more threatening than the robots. Terry returns to the Batcave to confer with Bruce, while Joker berates his gang for their failure before leading them to their next target, Wayne Enterprises, which is a gray hallway. Before each stage, you select which of 4 custom suits to start with, which seems like a fine idea, but I cannot believe how badly they fucked this up.
The suits look identical, except for the arm shields on the defensive suit, but they control differently. Only certain suits can do a jump attack, for example, and the standard suit has equipable weapons. You can swap suits on the fly once you discover them in a level, but there's no reason to bother mastering their different control schemes when you can brute force your way through the whole game with basic attacks. I recommend either the highly honorable Turbo Shin Kick or the defensive suit's Shield Bash. And even though I'm absolutely humiliating these enemies, I don't feel very cool while doing it because Terry's every movement has this frenzied cockroach energy. His character model looks like crap too. I thought of him as pointy Batman while watching the cartoon, but this is taking it to the extreme. He's just jagged shards of geometry stitched together into a vaguely human silhouette. What does this remind me of?
It's Fusilli Jerry! It's made from fusilli pasta.
That's it, I'm Fusilli Terry. After fighting your way to the roof of Wayne Enterprises, Joker talks some shit and sends another gang member named Woof after you. He's pretty aggressive, but there's still no strategy required. Joker gets away, and you manage to rescue Bruce even though Terry charges into this force field like Wile E. Coyote. Terry asks Bruce how the Joker could have possibly returned, seemingly unaged, but the old man ain't talking.
However, I'll tell you what you may already know. This game is based on the full-length direct-to-video film Return of the Joker. With the series winding down, the producers wanted to provide a climax to the story and push the envelope in terms of what could be depicted in a kids' show. The movie delivered on both counts and remains a fan favorite. The gang calling themselves the Jokers was involved right from the first episode of the cartoon, so you're left wondering whether the Joker was still alive or the gang existed through cultural osmosis of his criminal career.
Who do you think you're talking to, old man? We're the Jokers!
Sure you are.
Return of the Joker finally answered that question. I won't spoil the twist, and the game does such a half-assed job of following the story that it'll be easy to keep that promise.
Speaking of which, Stage 3 in Arkham Asylum isn't from the movie. I've heard it's a sequence they storyboarded but never animated. Either way, the abandoned Arkham is a gray hallway. It does include some vertical platforming as a crumb of variety. You'll want to keep your distance from these venom-breathing snake men. They and other enemies like the hyena boy Woof harken back to a cool episode about DNA splicers. What started as a fashion trend turned into a plague of teenage monsters, and even Terry got an involuntary taste of splicing. Something that makes this game easier than it should be is that while you're engaged with one enemy, the other politely waits their turn to fight. I tested the harder difficulty setting to see whether there's a difference, and the AI is just as poor. The boss fight in the heart of Arkham is against Ghoul. This guy looks like a Scarecrow ripoff, but attacks with a laser. He was the weakest one in the movie, too. Joker announces his intent to burn everything to ashes before running off. Back at the Batcave, Terry finds Bruce injured and calls Barbara Gordon, formerly Batgirl and now police commissioner. Joker's systematic thefts of gadgetry lead Terry to Tim Drake's lab for clues to the master plan. But the Joker is a step ahead, so he's perfectly willing to explain his scheme. With the stolen tech and codes from Drake, he'll commandeer a weapons satellite to vaporize Gotham City.
That's bad, like, we should definitely stop him, but it's not very creative. I wouldn't rank this among the classic Joker capers. It's certainly not funny.
I'm not hearing this!
The lab is a gray hallway full of mechanical obstacles. Ironic that Batman Beyond is one of the few N64 cartridges manufactured in black rather than gray. At the end is a key guarded by a single laser turret. That's it. You can beat the whole level in 30 seconds. Even crazier is that up next is the final stage, the Candy Factory. It took me 25 years to realize this game existed, and after 25 minutes of playing it, I'm on the last level. The enemy population is robust here, so don't be surprised if you lose a life. The game gives you the option of exiting to the main menu when you die, maybe in case you want to start over with a different suit. I don't see the point, it's the same as pushing reset. There are a few more gang members to mop up. Chucko the Clown with his questionable tactic of firing a bazooka indoors at point-blank range, and the DD Twins, although they seem to be holograms that you can mostly ignore. Just grab the key and move on. The final showdown with Joker isn't much better. He's got a few different attacks and a pesky little robot to chase you around the room, but you can take him out by darting in for a few hits then retreating, or just face-tanking the damage if you have enough lives in reserve. After a brief epilogue showing our heroes reunited, we smash cut to a freeze-frame end screen. No credits, and it's still playing the same music from level 1. Are you kidding me?
Oh, wise up, Junior. Game's over!
It's over, alright. Imagine paying $60 for this game when it was new, only to find out it's terrible and can be completed in as little time as it takes to watch one episode of the cartoon.
That ain't coming out of my allowance.
I would have rather invested the money in fucking Enron. A used copy still cost me $40, but whatever, I just put it on the old back credit card. I'll confess that beat-em-ups are not my favorite genre. In terms of playability, they have a high floor but low ceiling, in that most are okay, if forgettable. There are some great ones, but you really have to nail it in all categories to make an awesome brawler. Satisfying combat, top-notch graphics, sweet music, and larger-than-life bosses.
Return of the Joker fails catastrophically at every turn. Unbalanced button-mashing combat, appalling graphics, these so-called cutscenes are no improvement over 16-bit games, drab music, and bosses who are easier than bozo buckets.
We're ready to go for bucket number 1. Hey!
If nothing else, most beat-em-ups tend to be long games, with the goal of munching arcade quarters or draining your continues on a home console. I suppose I shouldn't complain that a game I hate is too short. I sure don't wish there was more of it, but this game barely feels finished, like it shouldn't have been released in this state. Street fighting is very much in character for Batman, and Batman Returns on Super Nintendo was a solid effort along those lines. But when I think about the console games that preceded Return of the Joker, they generally turned out better when the focus was on side-scrolling action.
This is the only Batman Beyond game ever produced, and although it was also released on PlayStation and Game Boy Color, I expect those versions suck just as much batshit. This is also the only Batman game on Nintendo 64. I know the Superman game is famously shitty, but at least that one is so unwieldy that you'll quit because you can't get anywhere. I just played Return of the Joker from beginning to end, so I guess the joke's on me.
It'd be funny if it weren't so pathetic. No, what the heck, I'll laugh anyway.